Hi, welcome to a small demo for Yang. In this demo, we would be essentially creating a Yang file and generating the Python APIs from the Yang file using Pyang library, and then would use the Python library into our main Python code in order to generate the XML payload, which we could send over netconf to the device. So we have written a sample Yang module where we essentially are having a container call interface which has a list of Ethernet interfaces. Each Ethernet interface has got multiple attributes like name, IP address, description, and out of all these attributes, the attribute called name is the key using which we can run a query on the list. The type of name is string, the type of description is string as well, but if you see the type of IP address, it's a derived type called IPv4 address, and that is defined in the module named if. Now, in our case, if is nothing but the model that we are looking at right now. If we wanted to use some other data type which belongs to some other module, we would have essentially uh, put that module name here after importing it into this module, right? Now, um, we would create a virtual environment. Inside that, we will install pyang and pyang bind. Right now, let's observe how my Yang file looks like. So Pyang essentially gives you a plugin or rather an option using which you can view the hierarchical tree structure of the Yang model that you have defined. So you see we have the model named sample. Under that we have a container named interface which has got a list called Ethernet, and the list every element inside the list has got three attributes. Their name, which is of type string, IP address, which is of type IPv4 address, and description, which is of type string, right? And we need to adhere to the same tree structure when we try to manipulate the configuration of this module, right? Now, the next thing we would try to do is we would try to get the Pyang bind up and running. Okay, we have got the Pyang bind plugin right at the path where we wanted. Now, so I still have the Yang file, right? Now, when I run this command, essentially what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a Python library out of this Yang file, and this library would then be imported in my main Python code where we try to manipulate the configuration. Once we run this command, we see our Python library is created by the PyAngBind plugin. So this is the generated library essentially, right? That should have API for getting and setting different attributes inside the model, right? Now I have already written the main Python code, which essentially imports this generated library, right? It also includes the pyang bind library, which helps us create JSON objects out of uh, the code that we have written. So what we're doing here is that from the from the sample library that we created, we are first creating an object of type in sample, and then inside that object we have the container named interface. Inside the container we have a list named Ethernet, right? And that list has got an add API which is created and put inside the sample library, right? So we are essentially using that API, passing an argument like the name of the interface, and thereafter we are able to create a interface object instance, right? And then for the same object we also could set the other attributes directly instead of using the API, right? Once that is done, so we essentially have a interface object which has got all its attribute filled up. In our case, it has got one Ethernet interface with name Ethernet 101, IP address as 192.168.1.0, and description as demo interface, right? Now we use pyangBind JSON dumps to see the JSON input inside the object. We write it down to a JSON file, right? So let's run this main Python code. So we see now we have got this JSON created. So this is how it looks like, right? Now we cannot pass JSON in netconf. We have to have a XML format, right? So what we need to do is that Pyang has got a plugin called JTox, right? Using the JTox plugin, we can first create a JTox file from the YANG file that we have defined. And then we can use the JSON to XML utility to create the XML sample XML file using the JTox file we just created right now, and the JSON file which was the output from our main Python code. Now if we see, the sample.xml, it gives some output to us. Let's see a pretty version of this. This is how it looks like, right? So essentially when we are trying to, let's say, edit the configuration of the device and trying to put this data in, so in the netconf message body we mention what kind of operation it is going to be, and also under the configuration tags we mention this whole bunch saying that this is the information that we want to pass to the device. Hope this is useful, and this is the end of the demo. Thank you.